Who pays tariffs?
Congressman, according to Harvard and the Richmond Fed, 80% of the tariffs are paid by the foreign countries where they originate. That's why the United States was on its heels for 50 years.
That would be like me saying, if you said, what color is my hair? I'd say I have long flowing red hair.
That was the administrator of the Small Business Administration, Kelly Loeffler, former senator from Georgia for about a year, talking to Congress about small businesses and their impact on tariffs. And she says that there are studies from the Richmond Fed as well as Harvard University that state that foreign countries pay about 80% of the tariff. And I really wanted to do a fact check on this, number one, because I'm an economist and this is exactly the type of question that economists can answer. And number two, what she is saying juxtaposes and goes against recent research that has come out that says that American businesses and consumers pay the majority of tariff. In fact, we have recent economic research, albeit from the New York Fed, that states that both American manufacturers as well as consumers pay nearly 90% of the cost of American tariffs. And between 40% of service firms and 70% of manufacturing firms state that they paid tariffs directly over the last 12 months. And 45% of these small businesses stated that they plan to introduce price increases in the future to offset the cost of these tariffs. And with this in mind, again, I was really interested to try and investigate where the Honorable Kelly Loeffler got her information from. Now, I will fully admit, I did a lot of digging to try and see where she got her numbers from both Harvard University as well as the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond. The closest thing I could find to the Harvard numbers was a study done by Gita Gobinath and Brett Naiman looking at the impact of the tariffs that were implemented in 2018 and 2019, as well as the tariffs implemented in 2025. But the numbers are really interesting. What they state in their study is that 80% of tariffs were actually passed on to U.S. importers, which is very different, right, than what Kelly Loeffler is saying in that foreign countries are responsible for 80% of those tariffs because it's ultimately the U.S. importers who are having to pay money to bring those goods into the US. So I don't know if she has a fundamental misunderstanding about the logistics of tariffs, but that is what the study finds. Now, 80% is the number for the tariffs that were passed in 2018 and 2019, which covered a smaller category of goods and also only included China. They also estimated the pass-through rate of the tariffs in 2025, and they found that that pass-through rate was about 94%. So U.S. importers paid 94% of the cost of the tariffs issued in 2025. And as we know from this study, as well as subsequent economic studies, that oftentimes those increase in tariff costs that the importer is paying are ultimately passed on to consumers. Similarly, I went and looked on the Richmond Fed's website to try and find the most recent literature about how tariffs impact the price paid by U.S. importers and foreign exporters. And as the paper finds, if we look at the introduction, it states that the most of the cost of tariffs is borne by U.S. importers. It says that this paper is in line with the paper from Harvard that I cited, along with another paper published earlier this year. Both papers that the Honorable Kelly Loeffler is citing both state that the vast majority of the cost of tariffs are borne by both U.S. importers as well as U.S. consumers. So I don't think those papers are actually supporting that particular argument. Now, this is all very interesting given recent numbers that have come out stating that the U.S. paid almost $50 billion in tariff refunds to businesses in the month of June, which is a sharp acceleration from the amount they paid in May. Of course, right, none of that money, as of right now that we know about, went to U.S. consumers. So businesses passed on the cost of tariffs to consumers in a lot of cases, but consumers are currently not eligible for refunds. Although there's talk about that going on in Congress and issuing relief bills, but I'm happy to talk about that in another video. And for now, that's all I got. As always, if you have any questions, let me know.